The Great Council of Jaren was one of the most respected gatherings in the galaxy. It was a place where leaders of many worlds met to discuss trade, wars, discoveries, and the future of the stars. The hall was wide and bright, its walls shining with crystal lights, and rows of alien delegates filled the room with colors and shapes from across the galaxy. Some had scaled skin, some had tall frames with long limbs, others had wings that glowed faintly, yet all shared a single thought that day. They spoke of Earth, the small blue world that had just begun to step into the stars. At the center of the hall, a large screen projected transmissions gathered from Earth. The images were simple recordings humans had sent into space, meant to show their culture and their history. Old songs, painted pictures, and stories of gods and heroes were displayed. Humans had included myths of great warriors who fought against monsters, kings who ruled justly, and travelers who crossed oceans to discover new lands. The council members began to laugh. One by one, voices rose in mocking tones. "These humans," said a tall being with a shimmering crest on his head, "believe that their ancestors fought dragons with fire and steel. How childish!" Another, with skin like silver glass, added, "They tell stories of sky gods who carried thunder in their hands. They imagine heroes with powers to move mountains. It is nothing more than fantasy. Their kind is trapped in dreams." The laughter spread. For many of the alien species, stories were simple entertainment, nothing more than distractions for children. To them, myths had no place in the real world of fleets, weapons, and politics. And so they laughed at humans, thinking them weak for sending tales instead of proof of strength. At the edge of the chamber, one voice did not join the laughter. It belonged to R'lyeh, a scholar from the quiet world of Turvan. R'lyeh had studied many civilizations, and he knew that myths were not only stories. They were mirrors of what a people valued most. They were sparks that guided generations. R'lyeh raised his voice, though it was softer than the laughter that echoed across the chamber. "Do not dismiss them so quickly," he said. "Their stories may seem like dreams to us, but to them, they are lessons. Every hero they imagine shapes their way of thinking. A people who tell tales of gods in the sky may one day try to reach those skies. A people who sing of warriors may fight as if they were those warriors. You may laugh now, but myths are seeds. Seeds grow." The council turned to him, some amused, others impatient. A heavy being with thick horns replied, "Seeds of fantasy do not make fleets. They do not build weapons. They do not conquer stars." R'lyeh bowed his head slightly but did not back away. "Perhaps. But they make courage. And courage builds the rest." The council ignored his warning. The laughter returned, though some were quieter now. To them, humans were still only dreamers on a small world, fragile and untested. As the meeting ended, decisions were made. The council agreed that Earth could be watched but not taken seriously. Their ships were too few, their technology too young, their myths too foolish. The leaders believed that humans would remain in their corner of space, bound by their old stories, never a real power among the stars. But outside the chamber, not all shared this view. Traders who had passed near Earth spoke of strange signals in the void. Some claimed to have seen human ships moving with purpose, not wandering aimlessly but following secret paths. Others said they felt an unusual determination in the voices of human envoys. These whispers were not taken to heart by the council, but they spread quietly among those who listened. R'lyeh himself returned to his private study after the meeting. He stood before a screen filled with Earth's images. He saw carvings of ancient heroes, ships painted on old walls, and songs of travelers who crossed seas that once seemed endless. R'lyeh's eyes narrowed as he whispered to himself. "They dream of the impossible, and then they chase it. That is what makes them dangerous." Yet his words were not carried to the others. In the grand chamber, the memory of laughter still echoed. The council believed that myths were nothing but shadows of the past. They did not see that for humans, myths were not dead. Myths were alive, carried in every story, every song, and every effort to reach beyond what seemed possible. As the stars shone outside the council station, Earth continued its work far away. While aliens laughed, humans remembered their myths not as jokes but as guides. They told their children about heroes who faced the unknown. They looked at the sky not with fear, but with the fire of those same old stories. And silently, beyond the eyes of the laughing council, they began to build. Far from the laughter of the council, Earth was moving with quiet determination. The people of the blue planet had heard rumors of alien eyes watching them, though no great announcement was made. Leaders spoke little, scientists kept working, and builders labored without rest. Across continents, factories woke like roaring giants. They produced engines, armor plates, and strange new machines that carried the weight of human ambition. In the great shipyards orbiting Earth, structures grew like mountains of metal. At first they looked like floating skeletons, empty frames drifting in space. But day by day, layer by layer, they took shape into ships. Long hulls stretched out, armor sealed over their bones, and lights flickered on like the heartbeat of something alive. These were not simple vessels for trade. They were warships, carriers, and frigates designed with one purpose, to defend and to stand proud among the stars. Workers came from every land. Some were young, some old, but all were driven by the same spirit. They remembered the myths told by their ancestors. The story of the hunter who never gave up, the warrior who fought even when the odds were hopeless, the traveler who crossed dark waters guided only by starlight. These stories had been told for thousands of years, and now they shaped the hands that built the ships. In hidden bases on the far side of the moon, quiet tests were carried out. Engines roared with a power never seen before. Shields glimmered as they spread across hulls, glowing for a moment like faint auroras. Weapons were tested in silence, striking targets until nothing was left but dust. Every success was noted, every failure studied, for humans had little time to waste. The governments of Earth worked together more closely than ever before. Old rivalries seemed to fade in the face of something greater. Leaders spoke to their people not with fear, but with vision. They said humanity's place was not only on Earth, but among the stars. They reminded their citizens that myths of the past were not foolish, they were maps of courage. Farmers tilled their fields while listening to news of ships being launched. Children in schools drew pictures of explorers in space, their crayons coloring the dark sky with bright rockets. Artists painted scenes of shining fleets rising above Earth, carrying with them the spirit of ancient heroes. Even those who could not build or fight found ways to contribute. Some gave their ideas, some gave their time, and some simply gave hope. And all the while, humans kept their silence to the wider galaxy. No grand message was sent. No warning was given. The alien council laughed in their shining halls, believing Earth to be weak. But Earth was patient. It did not argue. It built. In the deep seas of the planet, submarines tested weapons that could one day be fitted to starships. On mountain tops, observatories searched the skies, mapping routes through distant voids. In deserts, hidden hangars opened to reveal new crafts that rose swiftly into the air, touching the edge of space before returning to the ground. Every test was a step closer to readiness. Among those who worked was a pilot named Aaron. He had grown up listening to tales from his grandmother, who told him of heroes who rode winged horses across the sky. As a child, he believed those stories were only bedtime tales. Now, as he sat in the cockpit of a prototype fighter, he realized those old myths were alive inside him. He whispered to himself before each flight, "If they could ride the wind, I can ride the stars." And with that, he soared into the black sky, carrying not just training, but a dream made real. Elsewhere, a scientist named Lyra worked with her team to design new shields. She often thought of stories of ancient guardians who carried shields of light to protect their people. Those images guided her hands as she wrote formulas, adjusted wires, and ran countless experiments. Each success felt like one more step toward turning myth into truth. Slowly, Earth was becoming something greater. Its people did not simply build ships, they built an armada. Not for conquest, but for survival, for dignity, and for the right to stand as equals among the stars. They knew the galaxy might mock them, but they also knew that when the time came, laughter would turn to silence. Night after night, Earth's sky glowed with the light of launches. Rockets pierced the darkness, carrying supplies and workers to orbit. Families would gather outside to watch, pointing at the streak of fire across the heavens. Parents would tell their children, "This is our story now. One day, you will see those ships among the stars." The work never stopped. Factories rumbled through the day. Engineers planned through the night. Soldiers trained in simulators that placed them in battles yet to come. Every action was part of a larger design, one hidden from the alien eyes that thought Earth was weak. By the time a single year had passed, dozens of ships waited in the dark, silent and ready. More were being built, and even more were planned. From a distance, the fleets looked like shadows drifting near Earth. But up close, they were strong, alive with power, and filled with crews who carried the spirit of countless myths within their hearts. While the alien council mocked, humans worked. While aliens laughed, humans prepared. The silent build-up had begun, and with each passing day, the dream of myths became the reality of steel. The day finally came when Earth was invited to send its first envoy to the Great Council of the Galaxy. The invitation was short, almost dismissive, but it was real. For the Alien Council, it was little more than a formality. They believed Earth was still too young, too weak, and too foolish to matter. Yet they wanted to show the galaxy that they were fair, that every world, even a small one, had a voice. The ship chosen for the journey was not a warship but a sleek vessel built for diplomacy. Its silver hull gleamed as it rose from Earth's orbit, carrying only a small crew and a single envoy named Mara. She was calm, steady, and known for her clear words. She did not come to boast of Earth's strength. She came to speak with dignity, carrying not weapons but the weight of her people's spirit. The journey to Jaren, the Council's shining station, took several weeks. During that time, Mara often stood by the wide window of her ship, staring into the endless dark of space. She thought of her childhood, when she used to listen to tales of heroes who faced monsters with nothing but courage. Those stories echoed in her mind now, not as fantasy but as fuel for her heart. She knew the council would laugh, but she also knew she must endure it. When her ship finally arrived, the station loomed like a jewel in the void. Towers of crystal light stretched across its surface, and docking bays opened like giant mouths welcoming travelers. Mara's ship landed, and she stepped onto the grand floor of the council chamber. The room was vast, filled with rows of alien delegates from dozens of worlds. Their colors, shapes, and voices blended into a living ocean of the galaxy's diversity. The council leader, a tall figure with golden eyes, stood and addressed her. "Welcome, envoy of Earth. You may speak. Tell us what your people bring to the galaxy." Mara bowed her head slightly, then raised her voice, steady and clear. "I bring you greetings from Earth, a world of oceans, mountains, and skies filled with dreams. My people come not to beg, not to boast, but to stand among you with respect. We may be young to the stars, but we are not without spirit. For our history is rich, and our hearts are strong." The council shifted, some leaning forward, others smirking. One delegate, a silver-skinned being, stood and said, "Spirit, we have seen your transmissions. You speak of dragons, gods, and warriors of fire. You tell tales of impossible heroes. Are these your truths, or are they only illusions for children?" Laughter spread across the hall, echoing against the crystal walls. Many delegates chuckled openly, shaking their heads. They whispered among themselves, calling Earth a world of dreamers, a planet lost in fantasy. Mara did not flinch. She waited until the laughter settled, then spoke again. You are right. We tell stories of dragons, of gods, of heroes who stood when all hope was lost. We sing of battles that shaped us and of travelers who dared to cross endless seas. To you, these may be illusions. To us, they are fire. They are not lies but lessons. They teach us courage, sacrifice, and the will to rise again when we fall. Our myths are not weakness. They are our training. The council leader raised an eyebrow, his golden eyes narrowing. Training? Words do not build fleets. Songs do not make weapons. What use are dreams in the cold of space? Mara's gaze did not waver. Dreams shape the hands that build. Myths guide the minds that create. A child who hears of a hero may one day become a soldier who does not break in battle. A girl who listens to a tale of explorers may one day chart the stars herself. Our myths are seeds, and we are the garden that grows from them. Her words brought silence to the chamber for a moment. Not all were convinced, but some felt a weight in her voice. Yet the mocking returned, softer but still present. A horned delegate muttered, "Seeds may grow, but weeds also grow. You are still fragile, bound to your world. Do not mistake stories for strength." Mara inclined her head. "Then watch us, and you will learn." She said no more. Her silence after those words was heavy, like a shield placed before her. She had spoken with calm, with dignity, and without fear. Though laughter continued in parts of the hall, not everyone joined it now. A few aliens studied her closely, wondering if perhaps Earth's envoy carried more than words. When the meeting ended, Mara returned to her ship. She stood once more at the window as the stars stretched before her. She thought of her people on Earth, building quietly, preparing in silence. She whispered to herself, "They laugh now, but one day, they will see." And far away, in the hidden shipyards of Earth, more vessels rose into the black sky, their engines glowing like the first sparks of a storm yet to come. The council's meeting had ended, but its echoes spread across the galaxy. News traveled fast, carried by traders, travelers, and hidden channels. Everywhere, aliens heard of the strange envoy from Earth. Some laughed, repeating the council's words about myths and foolish dreams. Others, however, listened more carefully. There was something unsettling in the way Mara had spoken. Her calm voice had not sounded weak. It had sounded certain. In the weeks that followed, whispers grew. Reports arrived from the edge of human space. Traders claimed to have seen new stations rising in orbit, hidden in shadows of the moon or deep in the asteroid belts. Others spoke of fleets training in silence, ships vanishing into dark regions where no outsiders were allowed. The council dismissed these tales as exaggeration, but among the colonies, curiosity spread. One night in the council chamber, a horned delegate pounded his hand against the crystal floor. "Enough of this talk about humans," he declared. "They are nothing but dreamers. If they think their myths give them strength, then let us test them. They must choose submit to our order or remain locked on their small world. Their silence is defiance." Many delegates nodded, eager to show their power. Yet Ruler, the quiet scholar, raised his voice again. "Do not mistake silence for weakness. A tree grows quietly, but its roots can split stone. These humans are not idle. They are preparing. And if we corner them, they may strike harder than we expect." His warning was brushed aside. The council announced that Earth would soon receive a message of submission. The humans would be told to accept the rules of the council or risk being treated as a nuisance world, one that could not decide its own path. To the leaders, it seemed a simple choice. To them, humans were too fragile to resist. On Earth, the message arrived in secret. The leaders gathered in a secure chamber deep beneath the capital city. The words of the council scrolled across the screen: "Submit to our order, or remain alone, cut off from trade and recognition. Do not imagine yourselves equal to the stars. Silence filled the room. Then one by one, the leaders shook their heads. They see us as weak, one said quietly. They laugh at our stories. But they do not see what we have built. Another leaned forward, his voice steady. Let them believe what they wish. We will not answer with fear. We will answer when the time is right. And so Earth chose silence once more. No reply was sent. No protest was made. But the work continued, harder and faster than before. In the hidden shipyards, the Armada grew. More carriers slid from their docks, their armor shining in the glow of distant suns. Frigates darted through training drills, weaving like birds of prey. Crews practiced again and again, until they moved as one body, one mind. Each ship was not only a machine but a living story, built by hands guided by ancient myths. Among the people, the tension was felt as well. Farmers watched rockets rise in the night sky, their fields glowing under the fire of engines. Children asked their teachers why the stars seemed closer now. Artists painted warriors standing against shadows, their brushes guided by both fear and hope. Earth was not at peace, but it was united in a way it had never been before. Meanwhile, some alien traders who passed near Earth noticed strange movements. They returned to their home worlds with stories of massive ships lurking in the void, silent but powerful. The humans are hiding something, they whispered. They are not as weak as the Council believes. But the Council, sitting high in their crystal halls, laughed once again. To them, humans were nothing more than a small people trying to look larger than they were. Yet not all delegates laughed now. A few, like Ruler, watched the reports closely, feeling unease grow inside them. One evening, Ruler stood at the balcony of his quarters on the station of Jaren, staring into the endless stars. He remembered Mara's words, "Our myths are not weakness. They are our training." The phrase echoed in his mind. He knew that myths had power, for he had seen it in other civilizations long ago. A story could carry a people through the darkest storms. And humans, it seemed, carried more stories than most. Back on Earth, a young pilot named Aaron continued his training. His fighter soared through simulated battles, weaving between enemies that existed only as glowing lights on his screen. He fought as if he were the hero from his grandmother's tales, a figure who stood against giants without fear. Each victory, each mistake, pushed him harder. They will learn, he whispered during one training flight. They will learn what our stories have made us. Lyra, the scientist, also pushed forward. Her shields grew stronger, glowing brighter each time they were tested. She remembered the myths of guardians with shining barriers who protected their people from harm. That memory guided her hands as she worked day and night, refusing to stop until the light of her shields could withstand the fiercest strike. The galaxy believed Earth was silent because it was weak. In truth, Earth was silent because it was waiting. Every ship built, every pilot trained, every shield tested brought the moment closer. The moment when silence would break. And when that day came, the laughter of the Council would be replaced with something they had not felt in a long time: fear. The galaxy had been watching Earth quietly, thinking it was weak, small, and insignificant. Traders, spies, and scouts reported the planet's silence to the Council, who only laughed. They believed the humans were harmless, nothing more than dreamers clinging to myths. But no one had seen the full truth yet. Far beyond the limits of human observation, fleets had been waiting in secret. Ships were stationed in the shadow of asteroids, hidden in deep valleys on moons, and drifting along routes too small for alien sensors to detect. Every vessel was ready, engines humming silently, weapons sealed but prepared, crews trained and alert. The Armada was not a single fleet, it was a living, moving force, built piece by piece over years of preparation. On the Council station of Jaren, an alarm suddenly flashed. At first, the officers assumed it was a sensor error. Lights blinked red, signaling multiple large signatures entering the edge of their charts. "Impossible," said one delegate, his voice trembling slightly. Earth cannot have fleets here. They are too small, too slow, too untested. Riller, who had warned the council before, did not speak. He watched the readings quietly, his eyes narrowing. Something he had suspected was now clear: the humans had grown while the galaxy laughed. They are here, he whispered, almost to himself. Outside the station, beyond the protective shields and scanning grids, the first human ships emerged from the darkness. From a distance, they seemed small, like shadows against the stars. But as they moved closer, the scale became clear. Massive carriers, long frigates, and agile destroyers glided in formation. Lights glimmered along hulls, casting reflections across the void. Each ship carried the stories of Earth's myths not written, but alive in the people inside. The council stared in disbelief. Delegates who had laughed hours ago were now silent, frozen by the sight of Earth's armada. The ships were too numerous, too organized, too powerful to be dismissed. The myths they had mocked, the heroes, the warriors, the explorers, were no longer just tales. They had taken shape in steel, fire, and determination. Mara, who had returned to Earth after her diplomatic mission, stood on the command deck of the flagship. She watched the formation tighten, every crew member in position, every system ready. The calm she had shown before the council was now matched with quiet confidence. "They will see what we are," she said, her voice steady, echoing across the bridge. Aaron piloted one of the lead fighters, weaving between the larger ships as they prepared to engage in training drills. Each movement was precise, each maneuver calculated. He thought of the stories his grandmother had told him, of heroes facing impossible odds. Those stories guided him now, giving him courage that felt as solid as the metal of his ship. Lyra, in the engineering section, ran her final systems check. The shields, engines, and weapons arrays hummed in perfect harmony. She remembered the myths of guardians who defended entire kingdoms with nothing but courage and ingenuity. "We are ready," she said quietly, a smile of satisfaction crossing her face. The council scrambled to respond. Ships were dispatched to intercept the human fleet, but the Armada moved with purpose, maintaining formation, evading early detection, and demonstrating discipline beyond what anyone expected. Every strike drone, every sensor sweep, and every maneuver was executed with precision, as if Earth's myths themselves guided the humans' actions. Some of the younger delegates whispered among themselves. "Have we underestimated them?" they asked. "Could these small, hidden humans really stand against our fleets?" Fear began to replace laughter. The council, once confident, now faced the unknown, and the unknown had taken shape before their eyes. Riller, standing quietly at the observation deck, finally spoke. "This is what I warned you about. They have prepared while you mocked. They have learned, built, and grown. Their myths were never empty. They were plans, lessons, and courage, all carried forward into the stars." For the first time, silence fell across the council chamber. The delegates could not laugh. Their arrogance had been shattered by the sheer presence of Earth's armada. Ships that were once thought too small or too weak now filled the void with confidence, shining under the distant suns, ready to defend themselves and their world. The humans did not strike yet. They hovered at the edge of alien space, not with threats but with a clear message. The myths the council had laughed at were alive. The warriors, explorers, and heroes of Earth had returned in a new form, one built of courage, steel, and determination. Mara watched the aliens through the ship's sensors. She could feel the shift in their reactions, from laughter to silence, from scorn to uncertainty. "We do not come to destroy without reason," she said to her crew. "We only come to show that Earth is ready. Let them see the power of our stories." And so, the reveal was complete. The galaxy had laughed at human myths. The council had dismissed them as fragile dreamers. But now, in the silent glow of the Armada, the truth was clear: humans were no longer small. They were strong, they were ready, and they were about to prove that courage born from stories could move mountains and command the stars. The battle had ended, but its echoes stretched across the galaxy. The humans had proven themselves not by force alone, but by courage, strategy, and the strength of their stories. The alien council, once filled with laughter and scorn, now faced a truth that could not be ignored. Earth was no longer a fragile, insignificant world. It was a force built from myth, determination, and unity. Mara stood once more on the council floor, her posture calm and confident. The room, once filled with mocking voices, now held silence. Delegates looked at her with a mixture of awe and unease. Many had underestimated humans, believing myths were only dreams for children. But the humans had shown that stories were more than words, they were lessons, guides, and the foundation for action. She began to speak, her voice clear and steady. We did not come to conquer or to boast. We came to show who we are. Our people have built fleets, trained their pilots, and strengthened their resolve not because we wish for war, but because we honor the lessons of our history. The myths we told as children were not lies. They were our training. They taught us courage, wisdom, and the will to protect our world. A silence followed her words. Some delegates whispered to one another, unable to refute the truth. They had laughed at human tales, but now they had seen the power behind them. Humans were not naive. They were disciplined, intelligent, and strong in ways that no alien could have imagined. Riller, the quiet scholar who had once warned the council, stepped forward. I see now that I was correct, he said, his voice soft but firm. Human myths were never empty. They contain the spirit of their people, and that spirit has been forged into action. The humans have turned stories into reality. They are worthy of respect, not ridicule. Some delegates looked away, embarrassed. Others nodded slowly, recognizing the truth in his words. The galaxy had seen countless civilizations rise and fall, but humans had done something unique. They had taken imagination, courage, and history, and transformed them into strength that could stand among the stars. On Earth, celebrations were quiet but meaningful. The people did not cheer for destruction, but for recognition. They knew the galaxy had laughed at them, yet they had risen in silence, prepared for a moment when their courage would be tested. Families gathered, teachers told stories to children, and pilots returned to their ships knowing that they had defended not only their planet but the ideals that had guided them for centuries. Aaron sat in his fighter, looking at the stars. The battle had been fierce, but it had shown him the truth of the myths he had grown up with. He thought of heroes who had faced impossible odds, of warriors who had protected their people, and explorers who had ventured into the unknown. Now, he understood that those stories were not only lessons from the past, they were alive in him and in every human who had fought. Lyra worked alongside her engineers, adjusting systems and improving shields. She smiled as she thought of the guardians in ancient tales who protected their kingdoms against overwhelming odds. Those myths had guided her hands and her mind, allowing her to contribute to the victory. She realized that stories were not just entertainment, they were tools for growth, courage, and innovation. The council convened once more to discuss the future. The humans did not demand control or territory. They asked only for recognition and respect. The alien delegates listened, some reluctantly, and finally agreed. Earth would be acknowledged as a member of the galactic community, not because of wealth, size, or power, but because humans had proven themselves through courage and unity. Mara stepped back from the podium. She felt the weight of the moment, knowing that her people had shown the galaxy a truth that could not be ignored. Let this be a lesson, she said quietly. Strength is not measured only by numbers or weapons. It is measured by courage, by wisdom, and by the willingness to stand together. Our myths guided us, and we turned them into reality. Let every civilization remember that stories have power. Riller smiled quietly from the corner. He had always believed in the humans, and now the galaxy had learned what he already knew. A civilization that honors its past, that learns from stories and myths, can achieve greatness beyond imagination. The council, once full of laughter, now carried respect and caution in their eyes. Across the stars, the message of humanity spread. Traders, explorers, and diplomats carried tales of Earth's courage, and even distant worlds began to study human myths, seeking to understand the strength that came from imagination and unity. Humans had not only defended their planet, they had inspired the galaxy with a lesson older than any technology: courage and stories can shape reality. Mara looked once more at the stars from her ship. She thought of the children on Earth, the engineers, the pilots, the scientists, and every person who had worked quietly to prepare. The Armada had proven the power of human spirit. The myths were alive, and the galaxy had seen it. And so, the lesson was clear: humans were not fragile. Humans were not naive. Humans were a people who could turn stories into steel, courage into strategy, and myths into reality. The galaxy had laughed at human tales, but now, it had learned to respect them. The stars shone brightly, as if celebrating the courage of a small blue world that had grown into legends. Humanity had shown that no matter how small a people may seem, courage and unity can make them giants among the stars.